It doesn't seem that long ago, but it was 2.5 years that I posted a video about Bjork. That was June of 2020, dead in the summer of COVID. And at that time, I showed my collection of everything I had, and that included a lot of CDs and books and videos. And now it's time for an update, 2.5 years later. Welcome. What this is here is the cover of a picture disc that came out last year, 2019, for Record Store Day. It's the front and back of it. And there's the disc itself. This is a song from Bjork's 2011 album called Biophilia. That's this here. And a lot of these songs are about natural or scientific type processes. And in the previous video, I showed the app that came out with this album for the iPod Touch. One app for each song, and you could basically build your own song. It was in part an attempt to teach music without traditional notations and whatnot, but I think more than that, it was just to play around with these songs and get fans engaged with it. So that's in that last video too, anyway. And so here, this Biophilia album came out in 2011. This picture disc of the one song from it called Cosmogony. I can't fit it in the frame here, but there. Cosmogony, there's each side of this picture disc has a different version of that song. And these biomorphic weird designs on it are not by the artist who worked on the original album's artwork, although they do share a similar kind of design. But it's a friend of Bjork's from Iceland, an artist. And I forget his name because I lost the label that came with this thing. But it's just meant to evoke the kind of mystery and science and odd beauty of that album. Here's the flip side of it. Similar shapes. They're not meant to represent anything, any particular animal or anything else, just to be evocative. And then after that, I was only buying digital releases in the years following Biophilia. So I had her next two albums, but I had nothing to show because they were files on an iPod. But recently, I purchased these, which is part of a series. I think of all of Bjork's albums were reissued like this. These are cassette tapes. And so in order, this is Volnicura, which was released in 2015. And this is Bjork's breakup album. All these songs are about the breakup of her marriage with the American filmmaker Matthew Barney. She never names him in here, but she was with him for, I think, close to 15 years, and they had at least one child together. And this is a great album. This came out at the same time as her Museum of Modern Art retrospective in New York City, and I think maybe other cities too, but primarily there. And in my previous video, I showed the exhibition catalog from that. Black Lake here came with a kind of innovative, immersive video installation as part of that MoMA retrospective. This songs in this album as I say, about her breakup of her marriage. And what's really remarkable to me is that they've got timestamps. Really, it says 9 months before, 5 months before, etc. And progressing through 2 months after, and then the last few take place in some point future to that. And I believe that if I understood Bjork correctly in her recent podcast, this is the actual order in which she wrote these songs. That is, as her marriage was breaking up, she was writing these songs in this order and referencing, I guess, obviously here, she wouldn't have known it was 9 months before her divorce. Maybe she did, but probably not. But anyway, she organized the songs like that, as this kind of sequence. And then it came with the cassette tape here. And then her next release from 2017 is this one. It's called Utopia. And this is kind of the companion to Vulnicura, only totally opposite in its mood, much more optimistic, as the title would suggest. And instead of focusing on heartbreak and loss of a family and a relationship, it's about new beginnings. This cover is very disturbing to me, though. As much as I love Bjork for her avant-garde, design and fashion sense, this just looks so insectoid or something that I find it repellent, or maybe a reptilian, or a little of both. It looks like a monster, basically, in this mask. Can't deny the artistry of it, though. I will give it that. And then, so this comes with the blue cassette of the album. And the sound of these songs are also much less, I guess, intense than most of the ones on Vulnicura. And she collaborated on a lot of these songs. You can see the credits there, Arca. In fact, on almost the whole album, pretty much, Arca. I'm not sure where Arca is from. I want to say Brazil. Another very influential art pop musician and artist. All right, so that was Utopia, and I just mentioned a podcast of Bjork's, and I just wanted to reference that because it's the first and only podcast I've ever actually listened to all the way through. And it's discussed in this Pitchfork article from last month, which is, I think, when the podcast debuted, maybe shortly before that. But the podcast is called Sonic Symbolism. Each episode was about almost an hour long, and it discussed in sequence each of her albums, as you see them flip by here on the screen. And as always, it's always interesting to me to hear an artist talk about their inspirations and what they were thinking as they were doing their thing. And she's interviewed in these podcasts by two friends and collaborators. So there's an intimate feel to it, like this headline suggests. But it's on Spotify, and I highly recommend it. The last album in that sequence there, after Utopia, is her latest album. And that's this one here. This album is called, I'm going to say, Fossora. I think it's a largely made-up word by Bjork, meant to sound kind of Latin-y. Her theme on this album is funguses, fungi. You see them in the artwork here. And Bjork looking oddly Marie Antoinette-ish there. The look just gets more and more interesting. As usual, beautiful artwork through the album. And with the with the reference to funguses that continues themes that she had used in biophilia and in a lot of her other work before that. She's got a very strong interest in nature and the environment. Being from Iceland, she's especially sensitive to, I guess, what can happen to nature. Iceland's a special place. And the thing about this album, this song here, Ancestress, was written for her mother, who had passed. In fact, that one is too. But Ancestress is kind of the keystone of this album, and is in memory of her mother, who just recently died within the last couple years, I think. Same as mine. And the rest of the album is very consistent with what any fan wants from Bjork. Here's a song in, I was going to say Bjorkish, that's not right, in Icelandic. So continuing with her experimental art pop that she's so good at. Okay, so that brings us up to date in December 2022 of Bjork Gudmundsdóttir. That's her full name. Gudmundsdóttir is a name, I think, similar to Smith in Iceland. You can see here some credits of her string players on one song. Bjarnardóttir, Björgvinsdóttir. Here's his son, Gunnarsson. But, of course, she's known to the whole world just by her name, Bjork. Okay, thanks for checking in, and I'll be back soon.